All right, everybody. Celtics drop a tough one to the Detroit Pistons, 104 to 103. Detroit ends up taking the season series 3-1, but this was a tough fought game. We're going to talk all about it, give you our reaction, as well as before the game today, as part of the NBA's MLK Day presentation. NBA All-Star starters were announced. No surprise. Jaylen Brown leading the charge. We'll talk about that. All that and more coming up next here on Agreeing with Envy Postgame. You guys know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy, a Green with Envy post-game live, where the Celtics, who capped off the national TV MLK Day slate for the NBA with a matchup of the number 1 seeded Pistons, number 2 seeded Celtics. Pistons pull out a game here, 104 to 103, taking the season series 3-1. As always, it's your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. Greg, I want to ask you a question here to get us started. How much would it take for you to be an NBA referee? What's the number?
Probably like $300K.
Okay, that's actually not too bad. That's kind of what it is. I looked it up before because watching this game tonight, I just kind of imagine no one's happy, right? Like the game was physical. They could have over officiated, which maybe they did at certain points, and they backed off at another point. Like it was just you literally have a job that you cannot win tonight as an NBA referee. There's no one that's going to walk away from this game going, you know what? Those guys did a pretty good job. And I don't know. If you break down the tape, maybe they did all right. It was a really tough game to officiate. But average salary, about $250,000, ranges from about $150 to $550, depending on seniority, all that type of stuff. Some bonuses.
Yeah, starting salary. You get me to leave my job. I need at least $300K to go ref the games. Because dude, you're right. You're right. It is tough because the physicality that we saw tonight, which is what you're going to see in the playoffs, right? Any game that matters is going to look like that. And when you get a team like the Detroit Pistons, whose entire ethos is physicality, right, and tough-mindedness, having a bunch of dogs out there on the court, and then you got Jaylen Brown leading the charge for the Celtics, where he and Beef Stew get into it, and Beef Stew's first possession on the court, he and Jaylen Brown get double techs. And the amount of physicality that the refs were calling as fouls in the first half, they couldn't do that for the entire game, right? They were calling foul. Like the first half took forever because there was a whistle on like every other possession, and they had to introduce some level of flow into the game. So I honestly, there were definitely a couple calls that didn't go the Celtics' way, but tonight was not about the referees as a reason why the Celtics lost.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm kind of out on the whole, complaining about the refs thing. I just think in general, we're about like who has ever lost a basketball game at any level and not one of the first thoughts, a close game, and not one of the first thoughts been, man, they really missed insert call here, right? Like that's it's just your natural instinct, and of course, whatever team you're on, you're biased towards. So I'm really kind of out, except for the calls that are like decide the game at the very end, like that one play, there's no time left. Like, cool, yeah, we can talk and dissect that. But other than that, I'm kind of out on it. And tonight was just an example of being really difficult. And that's why, as I was talking about it, you said it exactly, where I was like, they kind of did over officiate to try to get control, but then you have to have flow because between the reviews and the amount of calls that were happening, what did Luka Garza have? 4 fouls in 3.5 minutes, I think, when he first got in. So it was it was a rough game to officiate, and it's part of what has made this Pistons team so strong to start the season, right? And we get, I think it's past start of the season, we're at the midway point, they're 31-10, like they're a legit team, right? And so I want to talk about this game, and then I think after that I want to kind of transition into like, hey, if we meet this team in the postseason, like what does this mean? So we'll get to that, but let's focus on tonight's game here first. As we mentioned, Pistons pull out the win here, 104 to 103. From the Celtics side, Jaylen Brown, another 30-point game. He was really good in this game, and especially because he had so much attention. It was so physical. hate to mention the 2 missed free throws, but it is just kind of a thing with Jaylen Brown that's always in the back of your mind. But let's just start with him. He plays 39 minutes, not the most efficient of nights, but part of that is because of the Pistons defense, but ends up with 32 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 assists. What do you think about Jaylen tonight, Greg?
He's great, man. Like without Jaylen Brown, the Celtics lose by 50 in this game. So let's just start there, right? He's the whole
Yeah.
reason why the Celtics were in this game. Put the missed free throws aside, put the missed rotations that lead to Tobias Harris wide open 3-pointer aside. Like there are definitely some give
That
and
might
take with
be
Jaylen Brown.
We've unfortunately watched a lot of Tobias Harris in our lives, like not by choice, but we just happen to play him quite a bit. That might have been the best Tobias Harris game, I think, start to finish that he's ever had in a game, at least the game that I've watched that I can remember.
Yeah, and I think part of it has to do with the matchups where Jaylen Brown decides I'm going to take Cade Cunningham out of the game. The defense is geared, like the team defense is geared towards stopping Cade. So you're going to end up with Tobias Harris in mismatches. He's just too big for Derek White. We've seen this too often with Derek White. He can't handle power forwards for an entire game. He can switch onto them occasionally. He's great at help side, great at protecting the rim, but he could not guard Tobias Harris tonight. Nobody could guard Tobias Harris tonight. The one time Jaylen matches up with him, he like forces him to make a pass down into the post. It was a great game by Tobias Harris. But going back to Jaylen Brown, it's just like I was texting with Phil throughout the game, and there were definitely some moments with JB, like when Garza gets the rebound in the first half and Jaylen is just standing out of bounds. So Garza goes to throw him the ball and JB has to like Neo in the Matrix out of the way of it. It leads to a turnover. Couple missed rotations here. The losing Duncan Robinson for the 3-pointer, losing Tobias. Well, not communicating with Peyton Pritchard, which leads to Hauser stepping up away from Tobias Harris, which leads to a Tobias Harris open 3. Like those little things, you can nitpick all you want, but without Jaylen Brown, the Celtics have 0 shot in this game. Derek White, once again, just awful in this one. I don't know what is going on with D White, but he's the storyline. If you're going to point fingers at anybody, point fingers at Derek White because he deserves the lion's share of the blame tonight. If anyone is pointing fingers at Jaylen Brown, like you got your priorities mixed up.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that. I mean, that's the thing that I think I look at here as a takeaway. There's 2 major takeaways from this game. One is Derek White, which we'll talk about here in a second. The other is the Pistons kind of took the Celtics superpower of just not turning the ball over to get the possession advantage. 14-6. Usually that's kind of flipped for the Celtics in most of these games. So that was a big part in a 1-point game that stood out. But ultimately, you're 100% right. Derek White, just 1 of 11, got to the free throw line, 2 of 3. Of course, he made some of the plays on the defensive end, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks. So it's one of those things with Derek White where he does so many other things, but these are the nights, and I'm going to say something here that's painfully obvious, of course, and really stupid, but this is the night where you look at, like 80% of Jason Tatum makes the biggest world of difference for so many different reasons, whether it's just having another big body, because I don't think this is a great Luka Garza matchup. I think Luka did a great job in the second half of just eating some minutes to give Nemi a chance to be able to finish this game, because when Nemi was on the court, he was plus 15 in this game, right? Like Nemi was on the court, the Celtics were a completely different team. But without him and without having that second big, not that Tatum's fully that second big, but he's one of the best rebounders in the league. He's going to be a little bit better able to match up with the athleticism and the strength that the Pistons have kind of up and down that roster. And he also then appropriately just kind of slots some of these guys offensively into where they need to be. Like tonight, like you mentioned, the biggest thing for Jaylen was all eyes were on him. He had to do everything. There was no one else. Like Peyton Pritchard had a stretch where he kind of got cooking a little bit. But outside of that, there was luckily Hauser hit some shots. Simons had a small burst, but this is again, as much as we praise Simons, because of the defensive pressure of the Pistons, this is not a great Simons matchup if he doesn't have other guys to play off of. Now you insert Tatum and you have 2 guys that can get downhill, can get to their spots. They got to create more attention. This is going to be a game where I think Simons, if we look forward to the playoffs, if you insert Tatum, Simons can have a much larger impact. But tonight, it was all really difficult. And unfortunately, that kind of falls on Derek White as the de facto number 2 for this team. And we saw in the one game the Celtics won against the Pistons, he went off in the fourth quarter. Tonight, I think you're right. You have to look at that 1 of 11, and that plus the turnovers, it's going to be tough to beat a Pistons team.
Yeah, I mean, D White, he's one of those guys that Celtics fans, because of his play style and all the intangibles that like the Derek Whiteness of everything that he does out there on the court, they have a hard time pointing fingers at Derek White. It's like
Yeah.
Derek White would own up that he needs to be better in this game. If you're like, oh, Derek White did this, Derek White did that. It's like Derek White was 1 for 11 from the game. He didn't have his like physicality up to the level that was necessary to be an offensive force in this game. And without Jason Tatum, he is the number 2 on this team.
Yeah.
He needs to step up and be better on offense against the Pistons, as he did in the game that you just referenced, right? 1 for 11 is just not going to cut it. I'm stating the obvious here, but I'm just preempting all the people that are going to talk about Jaylen Brown missing those 2 free throws, which is frustrating. And like, it is a personal hell to watch JB miss 2 free throws and then Tobias Harris hit a corner 3. Like, that is NBA hell for Celtics fans out there. But like, it's not Jaylen Brown's fault that the Celtics lost this game. It is Jaylen Brown's the only reason the Celtics were in this game in the first place.
Yeah, this is one of those games where you can't be fooled by the box score. Like, yes, 11 of 28 is not efficient. He had to take every single one of those shots, right? Like this was not one of those games where I looked at it like, man, JB's just really forcing it. There was nothing else. There was nothing else that was happening. So that was absolutely something that had to happen. Like I said, if it wasn't for that little spell I think Pritchard had in like the third quarter, like there was just nothing off the bounce that was happening. And a lot of that is just, is how the Pistons play. It's how the Pistons have gotten to their 31-11 record, because offensively, like the Pistons still are kind of a marvel to me that they've been so successful, because anyone that makes a decision with the ball in their hands that's not Cade Cunningham, I think I'm okay with. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with
Holland
it.
moments with the ball in his hands, I'm like, yes, give the ball to Ron Holland.
Yeah.
He terrifies me on defense, but anytime he has the ball on offense, I'm like, go ahead, dude, do what you want.
They've got a bunch of guys that Asar Thompson is a nightmare on defense. You know, the Duran and Beef Stew. Like, I think like I mentioned, I don't think this is a great matchup for Garza. I think those guys are too big, too quick, and too strong. Like, they're all things that are bad for a matchup for Luka Garza to be successful. Now, luckily, his ability to stretch the floor gives him a little bit of ability to give them problems on the other end. But yeah, up and down this roster, they've got defensive guys, but it's really Cade Cunningham. And obviously, I mean, you look at this right now, they had 24 assists tonight, Craig. 14 of them were from Cade Cunningham. Nobody had more than 2 assists outside of Cade. And so even though Cade went 4 of 17, a lot of that, again, shout out to Jaylen Brown, a lot of that was him taking that responsibility. It is really crazy to me sometimes that these Pistons are as good as they are, but it's just hanging their hat on that. It's their team culture, their mentality of just toughness. Toughness has gotten them to 31-10.
Comment in the chat here from Jason Too Legit. He says, sorry, I'm putting this one on JB. He needs to go out and snatch one of these close games, which he rarely seems to do. He gets his points, but lacking the clutch gene. I mean, I just don't agree with that, man. Like, he missed the final shot, but he was the guy that was scoring all the points towards the end of the game. Like, I don't know if you can pull up the play-by-play as I'm talking here, Will, but JB was the only legit form of offense that the Celtics had. He had that floater in the lane. He had that in traffic layup. He got to the line 2 straight times. Yes, he missed 2 of those free throws, and the 2 before that didn't look good either. they just like rolled around, touched every part of the rim. He easily could have missed 4 straight free throws. But man, I just can't put this on JB. Like, yes, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? So Jaylen Brown is named all-star starter. He is the guy. He wants the pressure in these moments. But like, it's a make or miss league. You know, Jason Tatum has all the chances in the world to hit those shots. Like, we haven't seen enough of Jaylen Brown getting those last second shots to say he does or does not have the clutch gene. But one thing's for sure, he's not scared to take that shot, and he wanted the ball when nobody else on the court wanted the ball in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he scored the last 4, so last 3 baskets and 2 free throws were all from Jaylen Brown, right? Like, that's how the Celtics got their points. And at the end of the game, let's just talk about that play at the end here. And this is something I'm curious about. If were you listening to the broadcast, to the
Yeah.
NBC broadcast? Okay.
Yeah.
So you know how Scal was like, I know what play is coming. Like, so he's like, didn't want to say.
Yeah.
I'm curious for your thoughts on, and this is something that's been I've brought up before, and I'm just not enough of an X's and O's guys. They really have an opinion on it.
Mhm.
Obviously, I don't think the Celtics got a terrible look, but I don't think the Celtics get very many easy looks in this situation. Whether it's Jaylen Brown tonight, whether it's I'm trying to think. I know that Derek White against Indiana was one of the last close games we have. Like they're all pretty contested, kind of just one-on-one. Like and obviously there's 4 seconds left. I think there was 6 seconds left in Indiana. There's not a ton of time, but it feels like there's more time to get something creative. And I feel like the Celtics end up, and this is to me a little bit more on Missoula potentially, but I want to
Mhm.
ask you as the coach of the podcast, if you feel that at all at the end of these games, or if they're just getting okay looks and just missing shots and it's make or miss.
I think they got a great look tonight. They got a great
Okay.
action. Peyton Pritchard in the corner. Jaylen Brown cuts up the middle, getting to his strong hand, getting to his right hand with the option to drive or pull up with 4
Mm-hmm.
seconds, I think is about as good of a look as you're going to get. And if you watch basketball around the league, every inbound, side out of bounds is contested and nobody
Yeah.
gets a good shot. There's
Yeah.
not
It's a tough
one
spot.
team in the league that gets a good shot in the 5 second side out of bounds. It's just not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. You're going to give the ball to your best player, getting in an advantage position and trust them to make a shot. This is what every team has done in the history of basketball. Nobody runs like an intricate action to get somebody a wide open shot at the end of a game. That's just not what happens. You get the ball to your best player, put him in a position where he can be successful, and trust him to go make the play. And I think what they actually did tonight was a great opportunity for Jaylen Brown. He just missed the shot. I
Yeah.
would have liked to have seen him drive it, but Asar Thompson, if you go back and watch the play, Asar Thompson is giving a little bit more help off of Peyton Pritchard than I think the Celtics probably expected because Peyton Pritchard's gravity. Peyton Pritchard also probably could have cut into Asar Thompson if he wanted to, like just to kind of take up his body a little bit, just to occupy him a little bit more. But he's showing help there. Jaylen Brown is driving to the basket to his right hand. If he drives, he just missed 2 free throws. Right. If he gets fouled again, I don't want Jaylen Brown at the line with 2 free throws. Like that's the last thing I want. So I'm okay with him getting a contested, but not like heavily contested. I think he'd still get a
Mm-hmm.
really good look on that shot over Tobias Harris. And if you go back to Paul Pierce every single time, right elbow jumper, step
Right.
away, like sidestep, either make or miss. Like that's just what the shots are in those moments. So
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with your premise that this is on Missoula.
Yeah, I'm not even trying to say it's on Missoula. I don't know. At times I wish we got a little bit more creative looks, but I understand what you're saying. Again, this is not my strong suit. This is why I default to you as the coach of the podcast. But yeah, it's something I think to keep an eye on. And I do think in general, when you just look at this entire game, this is again very, very obvious point that I'm making here. This is the Tatum hole, right? This is the Tatum
Yeah.
hole of not having, especially against this team because of their size, right? Like not having someone that can create, because there's certain matchups in which Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, when there's not as much size, speed, and strength, which is what the Pistons have up and down that roster. Basically, everyone besides Duncan Robinson, who was actually really good in this game, like besides him, and he's very long, like everyone kind of fits that mold. You know what I mean? And so, like, those are games where it's going to be tougher for White and Pritchard to be the 2-3s that they can be against, 25, 26, 27 other teams that aren't the Pistons, probably like the Thunder. And there's like a couple other teams that are just like horrible, horrible ideas for them to have to be that number 2 to Jaylen Brown. That's
Right.
the bigger point. But ultimately, Greg, let's talk about it as we start to actually anything else that you want to hit on this game before we start to scope out a little bit on this here, just from a bigger picture.
Another comment in the chat, just going to throw out the chat,
Yeah.
people that are rocking with us here from Norman A. Ospina Q. Stop running your mouth about how you're the best two-way player and just fucking do it.
I like the
Yeah, I
fucking.
mean, I get it. I get it. Jaylen Brown's going to talk a big talk. He's going to walk a big walk, but I would argue that he did that tonight.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is the thing. That's why my comments on the last shot have nothing to do with Jaylen. I don't even think like it was like I'm not even blaming Missoula for it. It's just something I was curious about. Yeah, I have a hard time. I really thought Jaylen played well tonight overall, and I just didn't think that there was much else. And so, Greg, when we zoom out here, look big picture, because right now Pistons are the 1 seed, Celtics are the 2 seed. Knicks, I don't know. We're getting panic texts from our friend Liptak every couple of days.
Yeah,
now,
Knicks fans are shambles, everybody out there. So
yeah,
we should feel a lot better than the Knicks fans that came in
yeah. So
all the expectations of a championship.
Take solace in where the Celtics are at right now, and the Mavericks, the Pistons win the season series 3-1. All 4 games have been close, right? All 4 games have been kind of a battle, back and forth, and so let me ask you this. With what you know now, with these 4 games halfway through the season, let's say no Tatum comes back. We just have the roster we have. We don't make any other moves for another big. It's just this roster. Pistons roster stays the same. How would you handicap a playoff series, knowing what you know right now with the evidence that you've seen?
I think the Pistons would be heavy favorites, and I would imagine most people would pick Pistons in 5 or 6. However, the limitations that you see with the Celtics up and down their roster, you see the same thing with the Pistons roster, which you pointed out at the beginning of this podcast. They don't have a lot of guys that can create, right? Like Karis LeVert is their like breaking case of emergency guy to run some offense through. And we've seen him go for big games against the Celtics, but he's not really that guy. Cade is the one person on the team, and then he is their sun. He is their moon. He is all of the celestial objects
he's
out
the
there.
stars. He's
the entire
planet.
galaxy.
He's everything. Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of guys on that team where if you remove Cade Cunningham from the picture, that team is not a good team, right? The Celtics have removed their Cade Cunningham and Jason Tatum, and they're still a good team. So I do think that the Celtics could surprise me in that series and maybe take it to 7, just kind of like how the Knicks did that to the Celtics last year. The Celtics dominated the Knicks in the regular season and then whooped that ass in the playoffs. So I think there's a world in which the Celtics could do that. I just think there's not enough offensive punch from the Celtics to get through that vaunted defense that the Pistons have, because they're just so physical, and Derek White's not a physical player. Peyton Pritchard loves physicality, but that's the one level of physicality he's going to struggle against. And then Anthony Simons, that's a matchup that's just made in hell for him.
Yeah, it's really tough because I think I'm with you, but at the same time, it's funny you brought up the Knicks, because I was thinking in my head, like the Pistons, you see the flaws, you see where the faults are, right? You know where the cracks are. It's just a matter about having the personnel to go ahead and attack that, and I don't think we do. And so it's a team that's very, very beatable, but without in this theoretical that we're talking about, we haven't filled those cracks, right? This is something that when you look at Brad Stevens, who now has, about 2.5, 3 weeks here to look around the league and see, what moves is he going to make and not make. This is something that you keep in mind, as well as, did you see the latest Tatum video that dropped today?
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of these takes. Like I
was more asking in jest. He was moving half speed, but when I'm watching and he's moving half speed, I'm like, is he moving half speed because that's all he's allowed to move, or is he moving half speed because he's just warming up?
Right, and it's like a 30-second clip, and I'm like, I really want to read into it. I more read into, I think Chris Mannix post or retweeted one of the videos and said that like Tatum did this in front of a bunch of media, and so like Jason Tatum, he's always kind of thinking like, what's the perception of me? What are people thinking? And so, Mannix was basically like, I think he did that on purpose to make sure that like the media knows. And of course, there was that clip that came out, I think it was after the Miami game, where he was caught saying, I'm ready, So he's like trying to make a point of like, we're getting close. Now it's January 19th. We've talked about it before. Like it's mid-February after the All-Star break. We'll see. So we're approaching that time frame, but and I think the trade deadline is going to tell us a lot about where Brad Stevens and like the front office think Tatum's at. If they do nothing, it's going to tell me they think like there's a chance he doesn't come back this year. If they make even a decent move, then I think that's telling me like, all right, they think they're getting something out of Tatum because this East is just so flawed, right? That's kind of the
Yeah,
ultimate point that I was trying to circle back to here
we have a
is
chance.
we see the cracks with the Pistons. The Knicks are falling apart. Like, the Sixers, same thing. Like, you can't. I mean, even though Embiid and George are out there now, like, you can't really rely on that. Their depth out, on the wing is not great. Like, it goes on, and it's just
The
like
Cavs got blown
it's
out at home against the Thunder today, 136-104. Like, we're in a much better spot
Darius
than
Garland's hurt again. Like, the
right.
Cavs are constantly waiting for their team to be whole, no matter who it is. So it's like there is a striking position here of where the Celtics can make some moves, and it's I don't know. The East is pretty weak, man. I
Yeah.
think that's what it comes down to.
But like the more you watch, and I've been trying to watch a lot of basketball just lately. Just I was
Yeah.
on this past week. I was traveling for work, so I didn't have any responsibilities, like dad responsibilities. So I watched a few more games. I watched games today, and like comment in the chat about Jaylen being a top 10, 15 player in the league right now. It's like you watch all these other teams out there, man. You're not going to find 10 guys better than Jaylen Brown out there. You're not going to find 14 guys better than Jaylen Brown out there. Even guys like Donovan Mitchell, who I've always kind of like had them on the same level. Like, go watch Donovan Mitchell try to deal with Lou Dort today. Like, he
Yeah.
looked like shit, and like Jaylen Brown is being guarded by some of the best guys in the league night to night, and he's putting up crazy numbers. Like, if I'm really doing it in my head, gun to my head, is Jaylen Brown better than these people? Like, it's SGA, it's Jokic, Wemby, just because of the defensive impact, but Wemby still has like a ton of flaws.
Mhm.
Probably Ant,
I
probably.
think I'd go Ant. Yeah. I was thinking about that recently. I think what was it, Ant versus Wemby the other day? I was watching I didn't watch that game live. I saw some of the highlights. I was like, I think I gotta put Ant over JB. Like, it's not
Ant's
far, but he's real
Ant's
good.
unbelievable. Ant is
Yeah.
unbelievable. But like, I'm thinking about it. That's where I start debating. Is it
Mhm.
Jaylen or Ant? I could talk myself in either direction, but gun to my head, I'd probably go Ant. I'm going Jaylen over Luca. Luca looks like absolute garbage. Like, he can't do anything for the Lakers aside from score 36 like empty points. Right? Like,
Mhm.
he's not doing anything on defense. So I got like 3-4 guys above Jaylen. Everybody else, you're splitting hairs at that point.
So this brings us to the other topic that we want to talk about today here. The all-star starters were announced earlier today, and to no one's surprise, Jaylen Brown will be making his first all-star start. Joining him out there also, Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. In the West, you got no surprise, Nikola Jokic, SGA, Steph Curry, Luka, and then Wemby, who won. I don't know how it was tied with Anthony Edwards. I didn't see how it was deciphered that Wemby gets the edge, but Wemby gets the start. Ant will make it as a reserve, anyways. But Greg, some of the things I thought were pretty interesting. So to your point that you're making about Luka and about Jaylen, like, so they give you here the breakdown. So it's 50% fans, it's 25% NBA players, and 25% media. So Luka finished actually sixth in the player ranks. So he finished outside of the starters. So clearly other players are kind of watching like, yeah, he's good, but he's like not as good as the perception. For Jaylen in the East, he actually finished third amongst players, only behind Cade, who finished number one, surprisingly, to Giannis, who was number two. Jaylen finished fifth in the fan, but here's the interesting one: finished first in media. And so
Hmm.
that really kind of makes you think, especially because media is going to be a pretty similar. I don't know if it's the exact same group that's going to be voting for MVP, All NBA at the end of the season, but to come in first in the East, ahead of Cade, ahead of Giannis, ahead of Maxey, who's gotten a lot of love, Brunson, who's been kind of the guy across for the last couple of years. It's really interesting to see that Jaylen not only has the respect of his peers, but also the media has very much for the season turned on Jaylen's side.
Makes sense, dude. He's taken a Celtics team that has no business being in second place in the Eastern Conference, and they're in second place in the Eastern Conference. And same thing with Cade, right? Like the Pistons, yeah, they have a great identity and everything, but they're a very flawed team as well. Cade is, as we said, he's their entire galaxies, their entire universe. He is the reason they are as good as they are. Without Cade Cunningham, they're barely a playoff team. So,
Yeah.
I think you can. It's between Cade in Jaylen in the East. Giannis, just because the Bucks have just been so awful,
They're just
I'm kind of
bad,
putting
yeah.
him to the side for now. But like,
He's Giannis. Listen, Giannis is still the best player in the East. Like I think
yeah,
I don't think
yeah,
there's much question of that. His team is just nowhere close to the best team.
right, yeah, that's fair. No arguments.
Yeah. And so it's really nice for Jaylen Brown. Shout out to Jaylen Brown. And listen, it wasn't very close. So when you look at kind of the weighted score, there's quite a gap between him and Donovan Mitchell, who was the next closest guy that was vying for that final starter spot. So for Jaylen Brown, he'll be starting. It'll be that new U.S. versus world format. So it doesn't really matter from which conference you come from because it's going to be international versus.
That's probably
US.
why Wemby get the nod over Ant, right?
Probably. I don't know. I could have looked it up. Honestly, I read one article. They said that he won a tiebreaker, but it didn't tell me how he won the tiebreaker. And then I decided I don't really care enough to look this up as to why he won the tiebreaker, especially because Ant's going to be there anyways. Something that was interesting is the next guy after Ant listed was Denny Avdia, who got got a better weighted score than Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Kawhi Leonard. He's had a really good year, but that's pretty interesting that he scored higher than all of those guys. But I think the
propaganda machine, man.
I think they got bigger things to focus on. But I believe the reserves are going to be announced here on February 1st once the NBA starts up, taking over for Sunday night football. But that leads us to just the last quick thing that we'll get into here, Greg, and we'll wrap it up and make this quick one. Pat's going to the AFC Championship.
Let's go,
first time
baby.
Since 2018.
We're back.
How do you feel?
We're back, kid. We're back. Got me out talking shit at bars again. You know, gonna drink some Bud Lights with the boys and just talk shit. We got Drake May, baby. We got Ramondre Stevenson, baby. We got Mikey Vrabel running the helm. We're good. We're good. We are going to the Super Bowl, my dude. I cannot wait.
Yeah, oh god, dude, we cannot let Jarrett Stidham stand in the way. That would be an all-time letdown if Jarrett Stidham was the one that got in the way. But yeah, again, not to bring up our guy Liptak again. I was golfing with him today. Nick's falling apart. Pat's back in the AFC Championship. It's a tough sports time for our guys.
They had a little window there, man. The New York window. It was there for a New York minute, and it's closing up.
It's gone. It's gone now, man. Yeah. So Drake May, the truth, and dude, it was that game yesterday. I will say that Texans defense was pretty legit. Like outside there was basically there was 3 drives in which the Pats scored touchdowns and Drake May made some. And that play between him and Booty against Stingley, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the league, unbelievable throw, even better catch, tight coverage, seals the game. That was just an absolute dime all around. The Diggs touchdown where fit it in a window and Diggs just like must have the strongest hands ever to hold on to that. Like really impressive plays. But outside of that Texans defense was fucking terrifying. I thought Will Anderson and Hunter were getting to May every single time. But really impressive. Tough game for Will. Hey, he recovered like 2 fumbles. So I'll give him that because that was probably the best things he did during that game. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to have the Pats back in the conference championship and 1 game away from going back to the Super Bowl.
We're favorites. Denver obviously has been a house of horrors in the past, but I think there's no reason we should lose this game in Denver. They're playing Jarrett Stidham, that's
the only reason to feel uncomfortable. It's just like we've had bad experiences there before, right? But it's like they have a backup quarterback. Who hasn't thrown a pass in 2 years, 2+ seasons.
And then when you look into the NFC, Charbonnet just went down, right, for the Seahawks. Donald's hurt. There's just like not too much waiting on the other side either. So I didn't think Pats were going to be there this year, but they're there, and I'm just like, all right, man, I'm locked in. Let's
ahead
go.
Of schedule. This is one of those ahead of schedule years, right? And this is, if we're tying it back to the Celtics here, this is if those, like Isaiah Thomas type teams, like if they all of a sudden caught the right breaks and you're like, we weren't supposed to be here, but we're here now. And like,
right. Or the year we took the Cavs to 7 right?
With
Maybe
Tatum and Brown and
LeBron
everything.
goes
Yeah.
down with a sprained ankle, and then all of a sudden it's like just who was on that team at that point? I don't even know who's on that team at that point because Kyrie was on the Celtics.
I mean, that was like it was legitimately LeBron and Jeff Green in Game 7 that beat us.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was the two of them, and then unfortunately, I mean, the Warriors would have been waiting. We would have needed like the Warriors, what, a year or 2 years later, where like Clay and KD go down. That would have had to happen versus us for us to
Yeah.
have a chance to beat that Warriors team. But hey, Pats right there on the precipice. Sunday in Denver. We'll see if they can go ahead and take one more step towards the Super Bowl. For us and for the Celtics here coming up this week, just a quick look at their schedule. Coming up, we got Indiana at home on Wednesday, followed by Brooklyn and Chicago on the road over the weekend. And then your Sunday, everybody, it's freed up. Go make your plans. Go figure out where you're watching this game. It's going down. Pats trying to get back to the Super Bowl. So we'll have something for you guys probably before that game, and we'll have something during the week as well, but we'll have something before that game that we'll probably put out. So I don't know if we'll know if the Pats are in the Super Bowl depending on our recording time yet, but I'm sure you guys will be geared up and ready for it. Also, just Greg, I know we've got some good friends of ours from Indiana. Shout out to IU, National Football, NCAA, whatever, the national champions, NCAA champs, IU football. What a fucking world we live in where IU football is winning national titles. Anything's possible now. That's kind of the story that we want here for this Celtics season. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Green with Envy. As always, appreciate y'all rocking with us. Make sure you are locked in, subscribing, following across everything, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We appreciate each and all of it, and we will catch you guys later this week. Peace.